Hey guys, so the podcast is finally here. This is the podcast where I talk about the book and the movie The Hate You Give. I waited until the movie came out so I can sort of talk about them comparatively, if that makes sense. Sort of compare the two, and there's a visual to go along with the story. I've been talking about this book for a while. It's a story I really believe in, and I'm just so glad that it's out there and that it's made, and I relate to it in so many different ways. So I talk about several themes that were expressed in the movie, things like silent racism, prejudice, socioeconomic differences, code switching, being an interracial relationship, having a strong black relationship. There is so many things that I discuss in this podcast, or so many themes that you can get out of the story. Obviously couldn't go over everyone, but I did go over some of the big ones that I think stuck out to me the most. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. If you haven't already, go read the book and then go see the movie. I personally like the book a little bit more, so I would recommend definitely reading that. There are little spoilers in this podcast, which is why I kind of recommend you have some background before you listen to this. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I have no idea when I'm posting this. Honestly, the last podcast, I never uploaded. I put it on private and it's uploaded, but I never finished it. So I never officially published it. So we'll see when this goes up. Anyways, today I'm filming this. It is October, I'm gonna say 19th. I just watched the Hate You Give movie, which is what this podcast is going to be about, the book and the movie, because I did read the book back in June, but technically it's the 20th because it's now 12:05 a.m., but we're not going to talk about that. So October 19th, that's when we're filming it. I know I'm just hopping straight into this, but honestly, I am so excited to talk about it. This podcast is basically going to be about the Hate You Give, the book and the movie, as I said earlier. But before I get into that, which I know I just said, can't wait to talk about it. Let's hop right in. No, before I talk about that, there is something that happened today that I really want to tell you guys about. So, it's been a crazy day. In second period today, I shared the gospel with someone, which makes me really happy and really, I don't know, I don't even really know if sharing the gospel is really the right word, but I'm gonna tell you that was not me. What I was saying right there was definitely not me. That was 100% Jesus. I don't talk to people, and the fact that I just talked to a complete stranger, I don't even know this person. They're not a friend. He was just talking to the guy sitting next to me in government, and the topic of religion came up. He's like, oh yeah, religion's bull, BS, stuff like that. And then I sort of proposed the question, because he was talking about how he thinks religion's BS, but he believes in a creation of a God, or a God. So I kind of asked him about it and proposed a question. I think he kind of found me annoying, but I mean, anyone you talk about faith with is gonna call you annoying if you don't believe in anything. That's just the reality of people. We're selfish people. We think like that. I was being very patient, very calm. I wasn't shoving anything down his throat. I was just simply proposing him questions about how can a God, if you believe in a God but then not religion, don't you believe that God has a will for his people, or you believe that people and God are supposed to be separate? If there is a God, why would he create people? I was just proposing questions. I wasn't telling him what to think or what to do. I didn't even really specifically talk about Christianity. He was just kind of attacking all different types of faiths. It was very much he didn't like the idea of religion, and that's any religion. So I was just sort of talking about that. You can't see. He also compared it to war, and you can't just take war and then compare it to an entire religion just because you see a couple people doing something. That does not characterize the whole group. So I sort of talked to him about that, and I don't know, I'm really happy. We plant seeds out here. We go make a motherfucking garden, okay? We gonna plant these seeds and make these fruit, be fruitful and multiply. So, and then I also saw this Bible verse, like literally in the YouVersion app. I went to the bathroom, started like bawling, because I don't even know, like that wasn't even me. Anyone knows me, bad social anxiety. What else? Like I just don't talk to people. And then the fact that I did that was like, I don't even know. It was not me. Like that was Jesus. So 110%. Let me actually show you what I saw in the Bible app. The verse. I literally opened it right after that happened. Well, I texted the group, like this group chat with like church people. And then I just opened my Bible app so I can like see what I'm doing. But I texted this group chat with like church people, which is also something else they would have like never done. So, you know, hey God, what's up? And then I found this verse. So it was actually on Instagram. So it's like by YouVersion. Follow YouVersion on Instagram, by the way. It's Ecclesiastes 12:13. The version is the New Living Translation, the NLT version. And this reads, "That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty." So this verse it just really reminded me how like one of God's main commands is, like I said earlier, to be fruitful and multiply, not just in the sense of making babies, but like multiplying his disciples, multiplying his kingdom. And okay, this is really weird. I just randomly had this flashback as I was saying that. Like I think I've talked about this in a podcast before. I haven't really been turning to God recently for things. I actually, as I open my Bible app, I realized the last thing I highlighted was 16 weeks ago, and that is so bad. So, I actually saved a plan I want to start reading again. It's one by Lecrae. I forget what it's called. But anyways, that's besides the point. But I just remember that this morning, like randomly, I started watching a video. I was watching like Instagram TVs, and I started watching one by Stephen Furtick, who is the head pastor of Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, or South Carolina, North Carolina, I'm not sure. I think it's North Carolina. I could be wrong. And I didn't even finish it, but I remember starting it. Let me look this up, because that's really weird. Like, I haven't really been turning to God, and I guess and then I saw that, and literally an hour later, I didn't even finish the video. Like, I just started it. And then like, oh, that's so weird. Okay. And then I started staring the gospel. I'm like, what is happening? Let me find this Instagram TV. Let's see. It's called, I'm not going to play it right now. Maybe I will. We'll see. Maybe I'll do better with making these. How to Handle Disappointment. Okay. I don't really know what he says, because as I just said, I just started it. It's like 7 minutes long. And I don't know. Maybe I'll listen back to it later, see if that has anything to do with it. But just the fact that like that all happened on the same day, like, could not have been a coincidence. Like, I just highly disbelieve that. And I don't know, I really want to get back on track with Jesus and stuff. I don't know, God is just such a, I don't know, like, for something to be inside of you, something to come out of you, it has to first be inside of you. So, like, even though I haven't been turning to God recently and just have been sort of ignoring him, trying to forget him, like, literally something that's inside of you is just going to come out. And God's going to use his people. Like, I feel like he used me today. And I'm not saying I've transformed his life, but planting seeds, it's how we change the world, guys. It's how we make a revolution. And I just wanted to share that. I think it's really cool. I don't know. Proclaim your faith. Another thing I sort of thought about was like how he almost compared, this is my last thing I want to say, I think, how he almost compared war to like a bunch of nations, a bunch of like religious groups were fighting against which religion is right, and that led to like a lot of war. And people want to focus on that, which not saying that doesn't happen. Like, can be a whole different conversation about like what God allows, what God doesn't allow, and good and evil. Like, that's a whole other conversation that I'm not going to get into right now. But anyways, long story short, God is not the reason evil exists in the world. Second of all, God's plan, he has a will for everyone, for his people, and saying that that's not correct is calling God a liar. And then also, and who are you to call like the creator of you and like the universe like a liar? Like, how you gonna flex when you see what God did? He literally made the earth. That's a Swoop song. How you gonna flex up next to God when he decided what earth is? Facts. Anyways, like, how you gonna make yourself seem bigger than God when he made like the world? All right, so I'm gonna stop explaining that. But also another thing about that is people want to talk about war and evil, but they don't want to talk about people being slaughtered for literally professing their faith and proclaiming faith and standing by faith. Like, you just see the war, but you don't see the people like literally dying and taking their life for what they believe in. And that doesn't have to do with necessarily just with Christians, but there are so many countries where Christianity is banned and other religion is banned. Like, they will cut your head off if you proclaim faith to Jesus. So like, no one want to talk about that, and that's not broadcasted in the news either, because that's not gonna proclaim that the world is not for God. The world, that's why God tells us we are in the world, we are not of the world. His people, his brothers and sisters, or his children. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of food for thought. So, that was my day today. It actually wasn't too bad. And then at the end of the day, I saw The Hate U Give, which I'm going to be talking about today, the movie. So I mentioned in a podcast like a while back. What is this? I mentioned in a podcast a while back that I wanted to talk about the book The Hate U Give. I finished reading the book back in like early July, but I started reading it like in June. So like literally the day after I left school, like the day at like junior year ended, and then the day after I started reading this book, The Hate U Give. It's been on my shelf, and I bought it, and I knew I wanted to read it, but I just never had. I found out about it from my English teacher. She was talking about it in class one day. So I'm so glad I was actually in her class, because otherwise I don't know if I would have found out about it the same way. Anyway, so I had this book, and I was like, I'm gonna read this. I remember she said there's a movie coming out, and just it was about police brutality and stuff like that, and I thought it'd be a book I would really be interested in. So read it, got hooked. Literally, Angie Thomas takes you through a roller coaster of emotions. It is insane, but in the best way possible of that word. It's amazing. The first word that comes to mind when I think of her novel, The Hate U Give, is relatable. Like something that's relatable, also authentic, real, something that's raw, something that's just so heartfelt. The book that she wrote resonated with me so much on so many different levels. Like, I know pretty much all the characters in the book, like in real life, you know? Or have heard of an example from like a family member or something like that. Like, everything in the book just is so real and so relevant, and like I can see myself in that story. And maybe not with the, exact same situation, but feeling the very similar things like felt in that movie. Now, obviously, fortunately, I have not had to witness such like tragic incidents like the one Star had, but I definitely have felt similar things and related to a lot of the themes that were expressed in this film. Or this book, rather. But the movie too. But yeah, the book I read first. I'm actually going to go ahead and read the back cover of the book, like the description, for those who don't know, and I'll kind of describe it briefly in my own words as well. Let me actually just Google this, because my dad actually has my book right now, because he's reading it, because I told him to read it. Okay, so I couldn't find the exact, like, text that was inside the cover, but I found something pretty similar. This is off of goodreads.com. So this says, 16-year-old Star Carter moves between two worlds, the poor neighborhood where she lives in the fancy suburban prep school she attends. The uneasy balance between these worlds is shattered when Star witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer. Khalil was unarmed. Soon afterward, his death is a national headline. Some are calling him a thug, maybe even a drug dealer, and a gangbanger. Protesters are taking to the streets in Khalil's name. Some cops and the local drug lord try to intimidate Star and her family. What everyone wants to know is what really went down that night, and the only person alive who can answer that is Star. But what Star does or does not say could upend her community. It could also endanger her life. So that was pretty lengthy, but I think it's a good, really good look into what the book is about. Basically, Khalil, as I just read, the main character, Star, who's a 16-year-old high school student. She lives in two neighborhoods. She lives in, basically, for lack of a better word, she lives in the hood, and then she goes to a predominantly white suburban prep high school. So that being said, she has to deal with issues like code switching to fit into her black environment and also her white environment, being almost feel like you're split in between two worlds. That is one theme that I deeply related with. I talked about this a lot in my podcast called Not Black Enough and Other Labels. So I was going to say I'll link that down below, but I'm not going to do that. So you can just look, to find that podcast. It's episode 3, I'm pretty sure. And I listened to a little bit of it because I'm pretty sure I talked about it in that podcast, but I'm not even sure, actually. So we'll see. I do touch more on this topic, though, between code switching, and I think this book really exposed me to that concept, and that there was a word to what I was feeling, which was really cool to kind of understand that you're not alone in that retrospect, and then having someone who can really understand the code switch between trying not to be too black about a lot of white people or too white around a lot of black people. And it's just something that I think a lot of people have to deal with, black people and otherwise. And I think black people in particular can relate to this because something that happens a lot in the story, both the book and the movie, is it's bringing up the topic of, for one, using slang. How slang can make a black person look ghetto, but a white person look cool. And how that's such a double standard, and that's a privilege in itself for people who aren't black and don't have to worry to be calling the loud black woman, or the angry black woman, or you don't have to have that fear. You can just live your life, and then there literally be no consequences. So people might look at you side-eyed, but your life is not affected by the way you act around people. So drastically affected. People see it and they move on. Pretty much. That's a privilege in itself. Being able to not have to really leave your bubble and not really have to see outside of that. And that's also another really big theme with Chris, and something else I really relate to, because I've talked about this before. I live in a majority white area, so a lot of people are privileged and feel entitled, and I can just see myself, whenever Star was at Williamson, I just felt that I was there too. That is literally me. And the juxtaposition in the film, I know I'm jumping around here, the juxtaposition in the film between Star breaking down because one of her friends just is so insensitive to the topic of this murder, and she goes with her boyfriend into his car, which just so happens to be a Range Rover. that's something that I don't think people would necessarily, I don't think, get. I don't know, just the complete juxtaposition between two worlds and having to explain it to people. And Haley, and like the Haleys in life, is a whole different conversation. I'm kind of jumping around here. I was starting to talk about code switching, which kind of led me to the topic of the people that are at Williamson Prep School and the different themes that code switching brings up, especially in the Black community, switching between a Black world and a white world. But I'm going to go back to that where we started. And an example that I can give, I also talked about this in my Not Black Enough podcast, but it was saying how like, because I have a majority Black, like, extended family, and like, well, all Black extended family, and like, they live in predominantly Black areas and neighborhoods and environments, so do both of my parents. I feel disconnected a lot of the times from the culture because, or feel like as if I don't belong because I live in a white area and I don't necessarily always feel validated for that. I feel like sometimes I have to be Black around them to not seem white, and then when I'm at school I have to seem like not too Black and seem more white, if that makes sense. And not even that with my extended family. It's not just like, oh, because I have extended family, I'd learned how to be Black. Like, I've always been a Black person. I've always been a Black woman. I've always had, Black parents. And like, sometimes I do censor like certain slang I use, I guess how I talk sometimes, which I know I don't know, maybe people think, but you talk so formal, like, why do you have to worry about that? But like, that's not all the time, So like, I feel like sometimes when I want to say something that's maybe kind of silly, maybe a little ghetto, like I can't in front of certain people or in front of certain environments. Like, I have to be comfortable around you. I almost only feel comfortable saying those types of things, or saying like girl, or like saying like those types of things around other Black people, because like it's a code switch thing. Like, they gonna look at you like side eye, like, I mean, not side eye, but like, blue eyed, or no, like they gonna look at you as if like you don't belong here. Like, what is this terminology? But it's like white people do something that like Black people do, and then like there's no consequences. So like, I'm just tired of that. Like, white people try to be Black and they're cool, and then Black people be themselves and they're ghetto. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But that is, unfortunately, the world we live in. Sorry, I just hit my mic. You probably heard that. Yeah, so it's a struggle. Code switching is definitely one of the big themes in the movie, one I deeply related to. Haleys, I literally have so many Haleys know so many Haleys in my school. Literally every like Sarah in my school. Not all of them, but like, it's there, the type. Y'all know the type. Let me see. I actually made a note on my phone of the different themes that really stuck out to me in the book. I made this before I saw the movie, so I don't like get them like misconstrued. There's so many themes, so like I'm not gonna have time to go over everything, but I just wanted to point out some of the main ones. Where is this? Should I search the Hate You Give podcast? Okay, found it. Alright, I made this on the 30th of September. Oh my goodness. That's kind of a long time ago. Hold on, let me get a drink of my water. Okay. So here, I'm going to start going down this list. Then they all kind of have to go off of code switching and things like that. So first bullet point I wrote down was white school, Black neighborhood. And that relates to my own personal life about having parents and extended family that grew up in Black neighborhoods while I grew up and a predominantly white one, which I actually kind of just touched base on. So good job, Mackenzie. You already going down the list. And then as like sub points, I wrote down like things like judgment from your extended family and people around you. Like I just said, if you act too white around black people, they go and call you an Oreo, or they're gonna like maybe not outward like that, but they're gonna, or outward. I have those family members, but you're gonna just have judgment. Or whether it's from your white friends, just like not understanding. So that's the main thing. And I talk a little bit more about my family experiences, give more personal examples in that third podcast episode. I know I keep talking about it, but like honestly, like a lot of the stuff I'm talking about kind of like links up, and I don't want to like, I don't know, have two of like the exact same podcasts telling the same stories. So, if you're interested, I just want to let you know that that's available to watch. Plug. Always plug. No. Okay, but the next point I put, which I think is a good transition, Chris as a white boyfriend. So for those of you who have read the book, or seen the movie, which I totally recommend actually reading the book first, actually. There's so much that happens in the book that doesn't happen in the movie, and you just get so emotionally attached, and just like, it's great. Read the book. Because I fell in love with Chris in the book. The movie, like, he was great, but like, he wasn't as prominent as he was in the book, and I don't know. Anyways, so Star is black, she's the main character, and then she has a boyfriend who's white, and Chris doesn't get introduced to her father till a lot later after, because, there's just some people you just don't introduce to your parents, especially your black daddy. Like, there's just some things Star just didn't want to do. I mean, eventually happens, and it's quite comical, but yeah, that's a major theme. And this is something I really stood out to me because I feel like that's something relatable to my own life. Like, once again, living in a minority white area. I mean, I don't have a boyfriend because, boys, what are those? But like, it's definitely something I've thought about. Like, in the future when I start dating, things like that, like, if you're dating a white dude, there's a lot of stuff they're not necessarily going to understand, and stuff you're going to have to teach them, and they're not going to be able to empathize with everything because they're simply just not in your shoes. But like, there's just some cultural, I guess, barriers, especially if you're like Chris and you're in this like sectioned off area, like you're in your own bubble and you don't get to see outside of like the rich white place you come from. Not necessarily all white people come from that background, but in this particular story, like, it's a prep school, everyone's pretty much rich and white and has money, and like, that's the reality I see a lot every single day. I don't go to a prep school, but I live in a privileged area. And it also reminded me, this theme, or like Chris as a character, which I really loved his character. I know some people had an issue, but I really liked him. It reminded me of an interview that I saw with Taraji P. Henson on the Jimmy Fallon show. She's opening up a campaign about mental health, and specifically with like black people, realizing that this is an issue that we need to talk about, not just pray about. And she said something about being culturally competent. So it's less about being black or white or being able to see color or whatnot. It's about being culturally competent, like being able to understand my struggle. And that's not something that white people necessarily get. They just see it as a color issue. They don't really see it as my struggle is like something that you have never faced exactly in my position. And you're not always going to understand everything, but it's being able to, I don't even know how I can explain it, be able to see less black and white and more in between the lines, and understand that cultural competency is not gonna, like, I don't know, like, there's just so much beyond seeing color. One of my favorite quotes in the movie, and also, I'm not sure if it's in the book. I don't think it was in the book, but I think there's a form of it was in the book. But in the movie, it said, Star said, "If you don't see my blackness, you don't see me." Because Chris is talking about, like, oh, I don't see color. Like, if you're black and white, we're all the same. But, like, yeah, like, shut up. Like, you know, like, this is kind of random side note. I heard this in a Jackie Aina video once. She was like, if you don't see color, what the hell are you doing at a stoplight? You know, just to kind of prove to people, like, if you don't see color, like, you're being a part of the problem. And I love that. Like, if you don't see my blackness, like, you don't see me. Because there's just some things you're not going to understand. Like, you have to be able to be culturally competent if you're a white person, if you're a majority culture, if you're an other person. And, like, you need to be able to see that from my perspective. And not just brush it off like it doesn't affect you. Because guess what? As the title suggests, this video or this podcast filled with a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, I mean, by now I think you should probably do that. Or read the book first. Do that, actually. But anyways, as the title suggests, the hate you give little infants fucks everybody. So that's what Thug Life stands for. The hate, as in the hate you give. Thug. So that, like, it's just the whole, like, the hate or the ignorance even. I count ignorance as hate because it's, like, hate. I just do. I can't deal with ignorant people. And then another thing I really liked about Chris's character, I actually heard this in an interview with Angie Thomas, the author. She was saying that one reason she put Chris in the book is because she wanted to sort of show the idea of, once again, being like half sleep. She was talking about how a lot of the movie is about activism, but then with comes activism, we get thrown around the word woke a lot, and like being culturally aware, being woke, being aware. And then you also have these people who are half sleep. Like, they kind of woke, like you just rolled out of bed, like, but you still not really fully there yet. That's like Chris's character. Like, he just rolled out of bed, so he's half woke or half sleep. You know, and that's just a lot of people that I know in my life and I see in my life. And like, yeah, I like his characters because I know, like, these people. Like, I know Chris's in real life. I know Haley's. Like, I know these people. And like, so it's like, it's just so real to me. Which is, I know I keep saying that, but I just love this, like, story so much, in this book, in this movie, and it's just so great. So yeah, Chris pros a lot of good themes, being culturally competent, being half sleep, not really woke. Another thing I really liked about Chris, I sort of started talking about this at the beginning. Like I said, I can really relate to, like, a lot of, like, the struggles and a lot of the themes in the story because, like, I go to a majority white, like, school, and I live in a majority white area, and I'm thinking about, like, when I do start dating, like, what's gonna, like, I feel like a lot of times on black people, there is an expectation or, like, a unspoken pressure to almost, like, continue the culture, and to date other black people, and to, like, I don't know, like, continue, like, the blackness, because, you know, we born from greatness. But yeah, I feel like that's also a pressure also. And I don't know why I feel that. Like, once again, I have not started dating. I'm not, like, saying, like, oh, this is exactly what I feel. But, like, I almost feel that, like, when I do start, you know, like, dating and stuff like that, like, I don't want to have to feel the pressure that I'm going to have to date, like, a minority, like, a black dude, like not date a white guy because I want to continue the culture, you know? And it's not that I don't find black people attractive or I don't find white people attractive. Like, I find a lot of different people attractive, but I feel like that's a pressure I'm going to have to face. And, like, I almost feel now, to a certain degree, like, if you're black and dating a white dude, like, how am I supposed to, I don't know, take that to my very black, like, southern, other extended family members who maybe don't understand or just don't get it. So, like, I know I shouldn't worry about that, but there's a certain connection with family. Like, even though if they're not really that great to you, like, they're still your family. And I know that's, like, messed up. Like, not all family is, like, great family. But, like, I don't think they're all completely bad either. So, like, I just see the potential in people, and I don't know, that's just a fear that I have. And I don't like that. It's like an unspoken pressure to almost like continue the culture, the Black legacy. And not to say that's a pressure given to me by my parents. Like, that's why I say it's unspoken. It's just kind of like a thing that I feel. And then another thing I like about almost sort of about Chris's character. But, like, we have Chris's character in Star, the 16-year-old is in an interracial relationship, something I see, like, very prevalent, like, in my life. But also, like, Star's parents, like, much like mine, are two Black people. So, like, they also show the idea of a strong Black love, which is great. And, I don't know, like, the story of Big Mab and Lisa really reminds me of me and my parents. And, like, their, like, personalities are almost kind of similar. Their histories are kind of similar. And I just think that's really cool. I don't know, like, I just saw myself in that story so much. Like, I am Star, and, like, I know all these people. Like, what? Angie, did you just write this book off of me? But, yeah, I really love seeing that strong Black love, and also being able to see that, because of the hate you give these infants, some in the circumstances that a lot of Black people are put in, and unable to get out of, like, you're put in messed up situations. Specifically in Big Mav's case, used to be like a drug dealer, a gangbanger. He was in jail, or he was in prison, and he got out, and, like, the hate you give these people just keeps continuing through the generations, and it's hard, especially when you're not in a privileged area, to get out of that. Another thing I really noticed in the movie, which is also really real to real life, is how fast or how guarded these ghettos are. I say that in quotes. But, like, the white people could be just as bad as drug dealers, but you won't see them up on TV. You don't see as many police circling around there, like, their condos or their homes. So, another thing I kind of saw, privilege rise. But anyways, I was talking about strong Black love. So Big Mav, even though he was these things and he had these things, he is no more. Like, your history does not define you. And that's something I love about Big Mav's character. And it just, I don't know, they just reminded me of my parents and my family, and just the entire story did. And I love that. So we do have the interracial relationship, which I really love, because it just reminds me of a lot of stuff that's here, and a lot of, like, stuff I can see, like, happening in my own life, or has happened in my own life. And then you also, like, I don't know, you also have the strong Black love. I love that. Because nothing against, like, continuing the culture, but, like, yeah, I have nothing against that. I love Black people, but, like, that shouldn't be your only reason to date someone just because they're Black, you know? Just in my opinion. So, another theme I want to talk about is Khalil's death. So, obviously, the whole story is based off of this one tragic event of Star witnessing her childhood friend get murdered by a white police officer, 115. And this really reminded me of empathy in the Black community, and how we share so much empathy for each other. Like, the reason, like, we see, you know, names like Tamir Rice, and we see Emmett Till, and we see Oscar Grant, and, like, we see all these, like, names, and, you know, Philando, and we take it, Trayvon, we take it so personally, is because we just have so many empathy. Like, when we say Trayvon or we see Tamir, like, I see my little brother. You know, when we see, especially Trayvon, like, Trayvon would have been, like, what, graduated high school? I'm pretty sure he's, like, around my brother's age. He's a little younger, but, like, if he was still alive, like, he would have done so many things. He would have been going to college if, like, someone didn't mistake him walking down the street. Like, if someone just like, the quote, there's a quote at the end of the movie that's like, where Star picks up the megaphone and was like, it's as heavy as the gun. If only the police officer would have traded his weapon for one of these, Khalil would still be here. Which basically is almost like a metaphor implying that, like, if the officer would have used his voice instead of a gun, we would have saved so many lives. Which is almost like, what was I even talking about? What was I comparing that to? What was I just talking about? I forget. But basically, you kind of get what I'm saying. So, if you would, like, like, for all these, like, dead people, oh yeah, Trayvon. So, like, if I was, so, like, if, I don't mean to call them dead people, like, in derogative way, but, like, if all these people who've been murdered, like, if these accusers would have just traded their voice, like, their gun for, like, they're using their voice, is, like, that's so much more powerful. We'd have so many more people that should be living right now. Like, Tamir Rice was 12 years old. Like, why are we talking about him like he's an adult? Like, why are we murdering 12-year-old and getting paid leave? Like, what is this? You know? Getting reemployed. Like, I just don't, like, that is the most ridiculous-ish, like, I've ever heard. So, it's hard. And it just really expresses the empathy I think we have as Africans and, like, we have in our community, and I just don't see that, like, with white people. Not all white people can see the empathy we have when we see Tamir Rice, we see Philando, I see my brothers, I see my cousins, like, I see, like, people that I know, even though I didn't know them, and that's just something I don't think white people will understand, like that. They don't get it. They don't see other white people on TV and think, oh, that could happen to me. I don't know, like, I just don't see that happening. So, like, the empathy we have for each other, like, it's not just us being angry, like, it's the same story, just a different name, and, like, that is something that hurts us really dearly, and that's something I don't know, I really relate to, and I'm just, like, cool, like, am I next, you know? So, yeah, there's another thing in the movie, sorry, I keep saying the movie, I just saw the movie. It's 12:58 a.m. So if I sound dead, that's why. But there's another quote in the movie, and they were saying Issa Rae's character, I think her name's Violet, the character, or April, April Ofra. So Issa Rae plays April Ofra, and she was saying in the movie, what was the quote? Oh my god, my brain's not working anymore. It's like 1 a.m. My brain just shut off. Where she was saying, what was I talking about? I forget. Honestly, I forget. It's gonna come back to me. Hold on, I'm gonna cut, and I'm gonna remember this, because I feel like it was really important. Okay, so I remember. Great news. Didn't think I would, but I finally remembered. So in the speech, she was saying at Khalil's funeral, she was like, people keep getting killed for being unarmed, but, like, the thing is, being black, you're never armed because you're never unarmed because the weapon that they fear is your blackness. They, as in, like, the police, the cops, white people, like, being black, you're never unarmed, quote unquote, hypothetically, because it's the blackness, the weapon of blackness is what people fear. So I thought that was so powerful. I was like, damn, like, you say that, Issa, but, or you go writers, like, that was some powerful shit. But yeah, like, I don't know, I just, that moved me. I love that. Thought that was cool. But yeah, we're going to talk about the next thing. I have so many things I really want to talk about. So this is going to be a longer podcast, but I'm excited because this is stuff I love. Like, I'm really glad I'm talking about. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Star being English. Another thing I wanted to discuss was Star being hesitant to speak up about Khalil. So that reminded me of the idea of, like, owning your truth, speaking authentically about yourself. There's this part in the movie where they, like, Big Mav, he asks like all his kids, get out of the car, line up, and recite like the Black Panther code part of it. And at the end, they're like, yeah, we're gonna fight for like justice by all means necessary. And then Big Mav is like, don't let nobody make you be quiet. And I really resonated with that because, girl, I do that way too much, and like I know I do it, but like, oh, so here it's much easier said than done. But y'all, Star can do it, I can do it. Even if she's a fictional character, like I can be Star. I feel like Star in a lot of throughout the story. I felt like Star, and like, just like the fact that like you don't let anyone else like shine your light. Like you're the only one who can shine your truth, and people are gonna get in the way of you because those are people. But like, don't let nobody make you be quiet. Like, you keep speaking up for justice by all means necessary. You speak up for your authenticity, your truth, you speak up for you. Nobody's gonna want success for you more than you. So, you know, you gotta own it, boo. So I really like it. I really like that. It reminded me how like your truth matters, and we keep our stories alive so that they're not forgotten. You know, like Star kept speaking up for Khalil, so he's not forgotten. He's just not another gravestone, another grave. Like, he lived, Khalil lived, and that's the message that Star wanted to give, and that's the message you want to give all these other names that we keep hearing on the news. So next time we hear another Tamir Rice or Oscar Grant or Trayvon Martin, like, we think about their life, not their death. Obviously their death is very tragic, but like, they lived, and like that all was a result of speaking up and being part of the crowd. Like, another thing in the movie is like the reason King like got kicked out of the garden or like got arrested was because they eradicated the stigma around snitching, and like that was a community effort. So it's like, if I have a community, we can speak up and do better and take care of one another like we're supposed to. Like being authentic and being truthful should not be, you know, a risk. Like, that is like, that being yourself should not be sacrificial, but it is. So that's why truth matters. So you really can't be mad at someone for simply telling you the truth. Not saying there won't be consequences, but like, you know, fight for justice by all means necessary. And I love that. It really shows also Big Mav like how much of a father he really is. You know, like, his past does not define him. So, like, you know, I really love that. And the last thing I wrote under owning your truth is that it may take you a while, but your voice isn't any less important. So this I found really significant because experience for me is back in my sophomore year of high school. In art class, just sophomore year, when I was 15, I really started to change my perception of the world. It really shaped my view of how things all started making sense. Like, injustices started making sense to me, specifically sophomore year. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was probably like my AP World class, my World History class, and just a collection of just a lot of things, the mental health and like struggling. Like, my perception of the world really started to shift sophomore year, and I was able to really connect the dots and see things for how they were, not how they wanted us to believe it. So I really resonated with that, and I really thought that or this one particular instance in art class I was talking about, I don't even know what I was talking about, but like, I was just surrounded by a lot of just ignorant white people who just didn't see, like, they thought that my truth, I forget what I was talking about, but I remember how I felt in that moment. It was almost that if I was telling my side of the story, but like my truth like felt less significant because of XYZ. Like, I don't even remember what the circumstance was. I'm actually really trying to remember. It's hard because it's 1 a.m. and it was like 2 years ago at this point. And I don't know, it was just bad. I was just filled by a lot of ignorant people. They said a lot of ignorant things. And like the fact that like what I think does not make, like, my truth does not make me any less valid, no matter how long it took me to come out of this, or no matter how, I don't know, how it came out. Like, my truth should not be less valid because I'm XYZ, or because of XYZ circumstance. So, that's another thing about truth. Your truth is always valid because truth is truth. So, hey, you really can't get mad at someone for telling the truth. Not saying there won't be consequences and circumstances, but depends if the race, the fight is more important than like your comfort, you know? So the race that if you're gonna win, all we do is win, no matter what. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, I wrote down Haley's ignorance, and I started touching on the subject, but more specifically, the issue that Haley had with, like, the black people, or, like, the black talk. Like, Haley follows Star's Tumblr because she was tired of seeing all these, like, black people and, like, black stuff, quote unquote, on her feed, which is honestly, like, I feel like the reason I just like all these characters, like, it's because I know all these people. Like, I know Haley's, I know Chris's, like, I know people who think like that and do that type of thing. So, like, it's no surprise to me that these people exist. Like, they're not even really exaggerations, because I literally know these people. They're not that secret about it. Or maybe they are, but in some cases, but yeah, I definitely know people like that who just, like, want to brush it aside and pretend that color doesn't exist, which, once again, you were part of the problem if you're gonna do that. So, thanks for leading us back in time, not forward in time. Let's not do that. Let's be better as people. Let's acknowledge our differences and move on. And, yeah, like, it's not black talk, it's human talk. Like, that's murder. Like, I don't know, I don't want to see a white person kill I don't want to see, like, keep seeing, like, white cops see a black man and accuse him of a criminal and a thug, and then people say, oh, well, the dude that died deserved his murder. And they're like, no, Tamir Rice did not deserve his death. He was 12 years old. Like, why are we talking about 12-year-old like he was a grown man? Like, he is another example of the hate you give. The hate you give little infants, F's everybody. Like, the environment he lived in. Like, what? First of all, what the hell were you doing at 12? Like, no one, like, everyone at 12 is, like, you're not you're not a man, you know? Like, your brain's not even developed. You're trying to figure out a lot of things. You're still a child, like, at 12. And the environment that he lives in maybe was prone to him. First of all, he's playing with a fake gun, wasn't even a real gun, and like a BB gun, and it's like the hate that they gave him was like effed everyone over. I just keep seeing it. Like, I just keep seeing this theme. So shout out to Tupac, because, you know, you a G, you a real one. Yeah. Basically, I started talking about Haley, now I'm talking about Tamir Rice. But back to what I was saying about Haley. Oh, I put a quote here. It said, like a thing I would hear people say, like, around my school. Like, why do you always have to bring race into everything? Not even just at my school, just in general, in public. People are like, why do you always everything have to be about race? Once again, with the not seeing color thing, being a part of the problem. Don't let that be you. Don't play yourself. Also, the privilege of white people not having to see beyond their race or come out of their bubble. That's another, like, point I wrote down about Haley. And that's just true. Like, she's just an example of being culturally incompetent, and how you're being a part of the problem by not even, like seeing beyond your bubble, being seen beyond your skin, seeing beyond anything. Like, it's right in front of you. It's like, Haley was an example of, like, how it's right in front of you, especially in the movie. They really depicted this well. Like, what Star was experiencing was literally, like, right in front of her freaking face, but she couldn't see it. Because she just couldn't see it. Like, she's just gonna live her life blind then, like, I guess. So, because I've had so many circumstances like that. where people have just been like so just blatantly ignorant. Like I put stuff in front of their face and they don't understand. Like, how are you just gonna live your life blind? Like, you're just gonna be okay with being ignorant and like, oh, y'all, I said earlier, I cannot deal with ignorant people. Like, that is my biggest pet peeve. Like, I just can't deal with fools. Like, let's just stop the foolery. Leave the foolery in 2018. And we should have left that ish back in like 1800s, but you know. Anyways, Haley, I think I pretty much covered most things with her. How some jokes take it too far. Some people think you're joking to an extent, and then that's the thing about being black, like, you don't know when people are being racist or people are not, like, or not necessarily not, but like, there's certain jokes, like, for example, the fried chicken joke, where it's like, you get to a certain point where it's like, I can see where Star's coming from when she's like, hey, that was kind of offensive. And it's not even because of the Khalil thing or because of whatnot. It's just a part of being black. Like, you don't have necessarily solid proof, but you know how you feel about that. So, like, for someone to say, like, oh, it's just a joke, man. Like, no, like, the culture jokes, like, let's not do that. Let's not do the black jokes, you know? Like, leave that to the comedians, you know? If someone is feeling not okay about that, how about you listen to them and you understand where they're coming from? Not just brush it off like, oh, it was a joke, get over it, you know? So, don't be a Haley. I think that's what we learned today. Don't be her. Because there's definitely some jokes people have told me where it's like, it's racist. Like, I feel like it is, but I feel like I'm being lame if I don't laugh. Like, things like that. I don't just go with it. There's just so many parts and stuff that goes to being black. It's just, you know, it's just a problem. Okay, we're going towards the end of the list. So the next thing I have was Maya's support. So Haley's or Star's friend, Maya. And for that, I kind of related it to finding empathy and solace in other minority groups, because that's something I feel like I've always connected with. I feel like I've always just connected with other minorities just better. Like, not to say that I don't like white people, just most of my friends just honestly aren't white. And it hasn't really been like, it really has been like that like my whole life. Like, back to elementary school, I barely had white friends. Like, not saying like I don't like white people, I just connected with other minorities better. Like, they just clicked with them. It has nothing to do with what white people did or didn't do. Not that I don't like them or didn't like them, but there's just certain connection that you see. Kind of like I was talking about with the empathy, with like the black communities has a way of empathy. It's almost like that. Like, I just see, I feel like I see more eye to eye with minorities. And once again, not saying to say all white people are bad. I have some really great friends that are white, but like, there's just some things where, like, when it comes to the core and like our beliefs and stuff, like, we see eye to eye a lot of times because of our minority and because we understand what it's like from our point of view. Not exactly like we get respect in that sense, but like we understand the idea of being culturally competent. That is what I tend to see in more minority groups than white people, from my experience. So I liked Maya, reminded me of my friend group, honestly. So, like her. The next point, I kind of already went over, so I'm just gonna briefly brush this. It's about Big Math being a delinquent. So I've been over this in depth. Basically, that reminded me of your past doesn't have to define you or your current reality. So, like, you can depart from your old ways, and it also doesn't make you less black to not be involved in crime or drugs or whatever you may like. Like, that doesn't make you less black, you know, to live in the suburbs. If you maybe don't like hip-hop, you don't like rap, like, that doesn't make you less black. That just makes you you. And people should stop like thinking that, especially black people. Like, can we not degrade other black people? Like, there's enough melanin for us all to go around. Like, there's enough culture for all of us. Like, let's not be the same basic, so let's allow diversity in our own community, because that's what makes our culture great. So yeah, let's continue that. And then another thing, or the last point I have, the last theme, is that moving out of the garden. So when the family, which happens in the book, not the movie, which is another thing why you should read the book. When the family moved out of the Garden Heights, I also said that relates to not making you less black. So, another thing with Big Mav is like his wife moved out of Garden Heights, to get her family a better place and position, which I think is like very similar to my family like situation. And then like they moved back in because Mav wanted to live there, but he was in favor of the community because he says our people are here. If you guys remember the trailer, Amandla, or Star, who's played by Amandla Stenberg, says, Daddy says we live here because our people are here, something like that. So the whole idea is when they move out of the garden is like Mav's biggest fear with that is he doesn't want to be validated as like less black, and he doesn't want to feel invalid in that retrospect. So, and also the contrast between living in the rich neighborhood, quote unquote, and living in like the ghetto. Like you don't, like when Star is like, I can just walk to Chris's house without having to take certain precautions to just walk out my house at night. Like people just don't think about that, especially rich people, like they just, I don't know, they see that as the issue for the poor and the less privileged, the less fortunate. I hate that word. Okay, but yeah. Anyways, and then also, this is a good one. The idea of the white neighborhood being associated with fakeness, which I'm not gonna say is not true. I'm gonna keep it real for the streets, but like sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, and that's also sometimes why it's kind of sucks for like black people. I don't know, like it. Once again, it's like the blackness is the weapon, so you're never unarmed. So like, I say it reminds me of my own family because my dad grew up in like a not ideal neighborhood, the hood to say the least, and then we moved here when he met my mom. He moved in with her, and where we live now, and then they eventually moved where they lived in like a black area at first, and they moved to where we live now, and then I was born, and this majority white neighborhood, and it's like, it's almost like I feel less black being here because I feel like my people aren't here, and there's just a certain fakeness and just not real, not authenticness to this neighborhood. But at the same time, like, you don't want to be in the hood because that's like dangerous. Like you, like there's like to say the least, like that's not a place you want to raise your children for several reasons. Like if you just see the movie, like you get a hint of it. Like seeing people get shot is not something you always want your kids to be around, but like sometimes you stay there because your people are there, and it's, I don't know, it kind of sucks. You don't win. Like, can we just have authenticity and like not all the crazy people? Not say that all crazy black people live in the hood. Not let's not get it twisted. Not get my words misconstrued, y'all. But like, there's the few that get into things, and there's stereotypes and just like high police circulation placed on black neighborhoods, like bad education. Like, can we just have a thriving black neighborhood that's like in the media? Like, can that just exist? I don't even know if I can get my point across. It's just like hard between two worlds, because like I want my black people, and I don't want to like have to go to somewhere else to get good education. Like, why can't we have both? Like, it's just, there's a lot of privilege and just economic factors that have to go into that. You guys can check out my podcast called Privilege that talk about that in there too. A lot of podcasts to check out. Episodes 3 and 4. There you go. Talk more about black people and black issues. But yeah. I think I'm going to end this podcast right here. It's kind of abrupt. The main things I actually, like the main overall points I really enjoy from, especially the book, but the movie as well, is that I appreciate how this story brought light to Black issues while still celebrating Black culture. And that is the main reason I love this film. I saw myself like in this film so many different ways, in my family. Like I literally know every character in this film in real life. And so like it just made it so real and so relatable, and something everyone should read and see. Read it first, listen, do it now. If you listen to this whole thing and didn't read it, I mean, you don't have a reason. You need to read it. Like, you just do it. Like, I did spoil, like, a little bit of stuff, but, like, you need to go on the same emotional roller coaster that I went on. So, read it first. See the movie. It's wonderful. You'll be hooked. As someone who literally, like, I've never been super into reading. I'm trying to get more into it. Like, it's an easy read. It's not, like, boring. Like, it is actually engaging. Like, go do it. So, I really love that. I love the book. I love the movie. It's just great. The Hate You Give. The Hate You Give Little Infants S Everybody. Based on the acronym Thug Life. Like the Tupac tattoo that he had. Or the tattoo that Tupac had. Yeah, that's what I meant. And another thing that Angie actually also said at the end of her book is I really like the comparison to being a rose in concrete. And read the book to get more into it. Basically, you're like the flower that blooms in the hard circumstances. Or like Star. She's the light that shines in the darkness. It's almost like a spin on that. The way Angie writes it is beautiful and great, so you should read that instead. But, yeah. Also, a fun fact before I end off this podcast. Angie Thomas actually responded to my tweet on Twitter. Or actually, no, wait, what did I just say? I wish. Girl, okay, I'm tired. It's literally 1:36 a.m. I need to go to sleep. I've been filming this for way too long. So, alright, I commented on Angie Thomas's, post on Instagram. And she liked it. She didn't respond, but she liked it. I feel really good. So, there we go. My friend just liked something on the Bible app. Okay. That was random. I need to, like, go to sleep. Alright. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. There is so much I talked about and so much I just really love. The whole book is about finding your voice. I feel like that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. And I hope you appreciated a little bit of my voice. If that even makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now because I'm sleep deprived. And, yeah. Go read The Hate You Give. Moral of the story. Do it right now. I'm not joking. Go buy it. Like now.